All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into a truly fascinating analysis of a foundational text in astrological history. We're looking at the Brihatsparasara Horasastra. Now, I want to be clear right off the bat. We aren't looking at this through the lens of mere mysticism or fortune-telling, not at all. We're examining this text as an ancient, highly structured mathematical map of human existence. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're going to decode exactly how these ancient sages used rigorous, precise calculations to map out our trials, our partnerships, and our wealth. It is absolutely captivating when you realize the sheer level of math involved here.
Okay, let's dive into this. At the very center of this complex system is Maharishi Parasara and the incredibly intricate Vedic zodiac wheel. What this explainer is going to decode for you today is exactly how these ancient sages looked up at this vast, seemingly chaotic sky and managed to categorize life's biggest, most overwhelming concerns into specific mathematical rooms. They called these rooms houses. Literally everything, from the specific diseases you might face in your lifetime to the exact amount of money you're going to earn, was placed into a strict, calculated formula.
So, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll establish that cosmic blueprint. Then, we'll dive really deep into the specific mathematics of Chapter 22, mapping out the houses of trials, marriage, and wealth. Finally, we'll wrap things up by looking at the actual astronomy of planetary vision. I promise you, we are going to translate these dense, ancient formulas into a perfectly logical, step-by-step journey through a human life.
Section 1. The Cosmic Life Blueprint. Structuring the Sky. Before we can start calculating outcomes, we really need to understand the core architecture of this system. Think of these two terms as your algebraic variables. First, we have bhava, or house. A bhava is a specific domain of life, right? Like your career, or your family, or your health. Second, we have karaka, which translates to significator. A karka is a specific planet that represents a real-world entity, for instance, Venus representing a spouse. Understanding how to track a karaka as it moves through a specific bhava is absolutely crucial. It's literally the foundational equation for every single thing we are going to discuss today.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 6th house, which deals with trials and physical challenges.
Let's step into the specific room in our cosmic blueprint that is dedicated to our external obstacles. This brings us right to the core focus of Chapter 22, specifically exploring what's called the Sashtathesh, that's the Lord of the 6th house. Verse 3 establishes a very direct cause and effect equation for disease and enemy attacks. The logic here states that if the Lord of the 6th house is placed in the ascendant, which is the first house representing your physical body, then physical trials mathematically manifest. It's just cause and effect. The simple English translation is incredibly clear on this. If this placement occurs, the native will suffer from sickness, potential ulcers, and attacks from adversaries. It's a formula for hardship. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer anatomical precision in these ancient texts. In shlokas 3 through 5, it breaks down how specific planets act when they interact with the 6th house. The afflictions are highly targeted. For example, the sun yields fevers, tumors, or head afflictions. The moon, that threatens the face, the lungs, or even drowning. Mars targets the neck and blood vessels. Mercury goes after the navel. Venus equations result in eye issues or diseases from sexual union. And Saturn mathematically predicts ailments of the feet, like rheumatism. It's an incredibly detailed, highly specific medical matrix. And continuing with the logic found in Chapter 22, we can actually personify this 6th Lord as a character. Imagine him as a traveler, walking around carrying a briefcase full of trials. When this Lord of Disease walks into the 1st house, as we just discussed, he brings sickness. But when he wanders into the 11th house, a fascinating mathematical loophole occurs. The texts reveal that instead of bringing sickness to your gains, the native cleverly acquires wealth through their enemies. They literally turn a variable of trials and obstacles into a direct, profitable source of wealth. How amazing is that? Section 3, the 7th house. This is all about marriage, partnerships, and destiny.
Let's look at the highly calculated aspect of human union, moving into Chapter 22's rules for the Saptamesh, which is the 7th Lord. Verse 4 presents an extreme mathematical binary. It's very black and white. If the Lord of marriage is in exaltation or placed in its own sign, the formula yields total marital bliss. The native becomes honorable, wealthy, and fortunate. Conversely, if the 7th Lord is in a state of fall or is combust, which basically means it's sitting too close to the sun, the equation completely flips. It predicts delays, profound marital disappointments, or a plurality of troubled, difficult unions.
And this really illustrates the strict, unwavering logic of the system. Think about it. What happens when the Lord of marriage leaves its own comfortable domain and wanders back into that sixth house of disease we just talked about? Well, the result is mathematically predictable. The seventh Lord plus the sixth house equals a sick spouse. These houses interact exactly like variables in an algebra equation. It's a calculated outcome.
But the precision deepens even further when calculating timelines. Get a load of this. The underlying mathematics of Chapter 22 rely heavily on planetary distances. By tracking the exact number of houses between the Moon, Venus, and the seventh Lord, the ancient astronomers didn't just casually say, "Oh, you will marry multiple times." No, they calculated exact chronological triggers. They predicted milestones in specific years of a human life, like the 10th, the 22nd, or the 33rd year. This is astronomical calculation applied directly and specifically to human timelines. It's mind-blowing.
Section 4, the 11th house, wealth, material rewards, and financial forecasting.
Chapter 22 summarizes this concept beautifully in its first sloka. The 11th house is defined mathematically as the ultimate domain of rewards. When the lord of this house is positively positioned, the text basically guarantees auspiciousness, daily financial gains, and a baseline state of constant joy and happiness. This is the specific room in our cosmic blueprint where all your hard efforts are finally translated into tangible prosperity. So look at this number, 6,000. To put that into perspective, that represents 6,000 nishkas, which were ancient gold coins. We are talking about immense quantified wealth here. According to Sloka 6 of Chapter 22, to unlock this massive fortune, specific cosmic tumblers have to align perfectly. Jupiter must occupy the 11th house, while the Moon takes the 2nd, and Venus positions itself over in the 9th. Align those 3 specific variables, and the vault just bursts open. But true to the uncompromising framework of this entire text, we have to look at the flip side. Verse 11 warns of the harsh reverse scenario. Just as the marriage lord suffered when it wandered into the 6th house, if the 11th lord, the governor of your wealth, falls into the 6th house of disease or the 8th or 12th houses, it mathematically zeroes out your financial success. You will see absolutely no gains, regardless of your numerous efforts. In this ancient system, cosmic placement entirely overrides human effort.
Section 5, the mathematics of drishti, or planetary aspects.
To fully grasp all these predictions from Chapter 22, we have to understand the underlying astronomical mechanic called drishti, which translates to planetary vision. Planets don't just sit there statically. They cast influence based on precise sightlines. So the crucial point is that every single planet gazes fully at the 7th house from itself, but it gets more specific. Saturn uniquely aspects the 3rd and 10th houses. Jupiter aspects the 5th and 9th. Mars aspects the 4th and 8th. What does this mean in plain English? It means a planet sitting safely in your house of wealth might actually be heavily controlled by Mars glaring at it from 4 houses away.
The rigor of this astronomy is just profound. Calculating the exact strength of that planetary gaze, what they call the drishti kona, or aspectual angle, requires a very precise equation. Let's walk through it step by step like a math class. First, you deduct the longitudinal position of the receiving planet from the looking planet. Simple subtraction. Then, if that sum exceeds 6 signs, which is 180 degrees, you have to deduct it again from 300 degrees. Finally, you convert that sum into degrees and divide by 2. Bam, you have your drishti kona. This proves the ancient astrologers were advanced astronomers, measuring celestial angles to the exact degree just to calculate human fate. It's not guesswork, it's a rigorous formula.
And that brings us to this brilliant concluding thought from translator R. Santhanam. As we've seen through our really deep dive into Chapter 22 today, this text is not vague poetry. By studying the rigorous, mathematical lines suggested by Maharshi Parasara, especially regarding the 6th and 7th lords, one engages in applied astrology. It's practical. It's a highly intricate science of variables and outcomes rather than just theoretical guessing. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. You now know that these texts view your existence not as some random sequence of chance events, but as a deeply calculated blueprint. So, armed with the specific mathematical knowledge of diseases, enemies, and wealth, how will you view the blueprint of your own life? Thank you so much for exploring Chapter 22 with me in this explainer. Keep questioning the math behind the universe, and we'll see you in our next chapter where we'll unpack even more of these ancient